Hey guys, welcome into another edition of Running with James. It's good to be back in front of you and in your ears, tickling those earways. Back here once again with myself, Coach James. Got Rocky to my right, our producer extraordinaire. We've got the lovely Lauren on my left. Lovely Lauren left. The triple L, bringing it up. Being super, what do they call it? What's that saying they're saying all the time? Very something, very demure or something like that.
Oh, very demure, very mindful.
Very mindful, very demure, right?
No one is accusing me
Very
of being
mindful.
demure.
Very mindful. Very demure.
Is that, are you making fun of the way
Very mindful. Very demure.
James is not thinking
The only thing that's better is if this would be a skirt I was wearing. I'm a lady.
It'd be really funny if you like took a little like Christmas logo and put it like right there.
Yes, yes, a Christmas tree. Or a little Grinch face. That would be even better.
That would be good.
That would be even better. Speaking of Grinch,
It's the season.
it's that season, bro.
That season.
I forgot about that.
Grinch
It's that
is in the
season.
air.
Yep. Got the video I need to put together. I've got the music already. I've got the lyrics.
You wrote a new one?
It's the one that I've been working on for a while now.
Okay.
So this may be probably the biggest production we've done over Grinch.
Oh, wow.
Guys,
So
this is a very big treat. We
this is
all look forward to this every year.
This is going to be, I don't even know. It's going to be, yeah. I mean, it's probably one of the dopest songs. Actually, the other day, you know you've arrived, guys. Okay, when you're making music, I mean, you have some experience with making music.
Some.
Yeah, you've made some music before.
So.
He has. But I'm not really a musician per se. I would not consider myself a musician. But when you're on Instagram and you get tagged and it says so-and-so used your audio.
Oh.
And you go to your audio and you see all these Christmas videos where people have used your original Grinch music. I don't know. It does something for your heart. It brings joy to your heart. But one of my, I guess the last song I made last year, or what have you, people are using it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like for their Grinch videos.
So when I see it trending, I'm like, I know this guy.
I don't know if it's going to be trending, but this next one
Make it trending.
is either going to go ballistic or people are going to hate it. But I feel like it's going to go, because it's got a beat on it. It's got a good riff. It's kind of like, because that's kind of a trend, right?
Did you
like the country rap trend is kind of hot right now.
Okay. I was going to ask you, did you go country rap or like more of a 90s hip hop?
No, it's
style?
like country rap
Okay.
for sure. I mean, there's an electric guitar in it, and
Does someone take Max?
someone what?
Take your dog?
No.
Oh, you could put a dog in it now.
Yeah, we're not doing that. That dog would freaking. I don't
Oh,
even
you
know.
do have a Max.
That is not a Max. That is a moose.
Same color.
A moose.
That is a moose. She is.
She could be a moose.
Jesus, that dog is the bane of my existence.
She's very vocal right now.
Really?
She's loud. That bark is ear piercing.
She is at a very vocal stage in her life.
I'll get that
And
shot
she's
color.
back talks
Silence.
nonstop,
She
bro.
She actually does back talk.
Like it's literal back talk, and her
You tell
face.
her no, and she.
Yeah. And she's doing this thing now, and I know it's playing, but I'm a little nervous though, where she's like, she'll start playing, and then I get up, and her and Olivia get into it, and it's too much, and I'm like, everybody needs to stop, and then Olivia's like, oh, the dog won't leave me alone, so I have to get up and start dominating, and the dog's like,
Oh, where she does a.
yeah, and, and I'm like, sit, and she's like, and she stares at me with her.
She
Wow,
does
she
make
pulls the
that.
fangs
That is
out.
actually the exact face she makes. Her nose crinkles and she just.
and you just see the front teeth. And
Because she's
she,
all this hair.
yeah, and you just see her,
this.
and she's sitting there just looking at you, and I'm like, so I always turn like a little sideways because of her height. I don't want her to like
Perfect
jump
size
up.
for- yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like,
Christmas ornaments.
yes, right. So I just kind of turn a little sideways, and I'm like, sit, and then I'm like, down, stay, and I'm like, don't move, just stay. And she's like, then she'll sit and she'll get all sweet. And then Olivia will inherently, for whatever reason, stand up and just take off running.
Your daughter does sound like a squeaky toy.
She's a freaking instigator.
She is an instigator. She's
Jesus.
a squeaky toy.
I was an instigator growing up. I'm not going to lie.
I was not.
But she's like to that. She's that to the 25th power. It's like, and I wasn't even an instigator until I was like a teenager. Like as her age, I was like very, very mindful, very demure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was never an instigator with animals as a kid because I was always terrified of getting bit. So I was like, nope.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
But now I'm like, yeah.
I'm half scared when she makes that face. I'm like,
It's pretty
is this
funny.
dog gonna rip my throat out?
But it's like it looks like she's trying to be vicious, but also because she's so fluffy,
Yeah,
it's like it's hard to take it serious because it's like you just see the little front teeth. You don't even see the canines because of her hair.
Yeah, this is, and
It's
she's
funny.
she's got an afro. Well, she's got like a
Yes.
teased afro. It's not even like an afro. It's like a 1984 teased. I mean, the only thing she really needs is
So
like
glow. It's
some
so glow.
some little like little ribbons in her hair or something, and like little like net gloves on her paws. You know what I'm saying? And like a freaking net shirt and like neon. Oh my god, yeah. If we put some Soul Glow, when she gets wet, she actually
Does look
lets
like
her
a
Soul
Soul Glow
Glow.
commercial.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing. She wants to go outside, and like it's been rainy this week.
Oh, muddy and dirty.
And she's been doing this digging thing now. So like if we let her outside, like she comes in and she's covered in like wet, it's not mud, it's like just wet dirt and grass because she rolls around in it, and then she comes in the door and it's like, I'm going to share this with the world, and just starts doing laps and running all over, like doing the zoomy thing.
Yeah.
All over the freaking, the first thing she does is jump on the sofa. Then she does a loop and then does like this pouncing jump about 10 feet from the middle of our carpet to like a chair so that the chair slides all the way to the kitchen table and then like sits there. Like so proud of herself. And I'm like, I want to freaking choke this dog out.
This dog has been the best thing that's ever happened to James. Are you absolutely loving this decision?
No, I'm not. I'm regretting like ever saying, yes, we can have a dog.
She is still a puppy. I am confident she will grow out of all of this. It's just getting
Like
through
a year or
this
two.
year. It's getting through the first year at least.
Dude, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Honestly, I don't think it's true anymore, honestly. I used to be a very patient person. I'm like extremely patient. Like I felt like my patience was never ending. It's ended. Like
Dog collar.
I'm not patient with anything or anybody anymore. Like I'm always on edge. Like I'm like, fine. I'm just, oh, you're having a great day, whatever. And then somebody just looks at me. Like
that's
as
where your
everything
dog
is what I'm
is
picturing about now
that
is
what
that
you
dog
see?
doing that, and I freaking just like have to start clenching my jaw because I just like shut up, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything, because I just want to lose it.
So the Grinch is gonna be a hit this year.
We'll see.
I think
We'll see.
I'm excited because we didn't.
See.
He didn't really make an appearance last year, did he? 'Cause we got so
It was
busy.
like it was more like it was a brief
dance.
appearance. It was
Yeah.
a brief appearance. But yeah, this is a full on video dance whole thing.
Are there new characters?
Should be dropping next week. Well, I mean, I don't know if characters are really the word I would use, but yeah, something like that.
How did you find time to even record it? I don't know when you recorded it.
I mean, that's the thing about me, Lauren, is that I'm very efficient
Clearly,
and I make things happen,
Clearly.
Captain. You know what I mean?
were you?
So
I'm sure you were in on it.
No, my house is Grinch themed though. I
Oh,
thought
is
about
it?
you.
Oh, cute.
nice,
Nice.
nice. I feel like now the Grinch has almost reached a place of like it's as popular or really close to Santa. Like, I mean, obviously the Grinch isn't bringing gifts, but like people people will pay for Grinches to come,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Have you, I saw a whole bunch of videos today of Grinches taking Christmas trees on Christmas Day,
I've seen.
oh yeah,
terrorizing little kids.
Have you
Yeah.
seen? Somebody did a thing where they had someone come as Santa, visiting kids, and then they had someone come as a Grinch, and they like were fighting.
over the Grinch.
Though, like no.
Oh, the Grinch and the Santa were fighting.
like duking
Oh.
it out.
Oh, I
I
didn't
sent
see
you
that.
that one video.
Yeah,
I thought
I
was
got
so
it.
funny.
Yeah, those guys run everywhere though. It's too intense.
It's so funny.
It's too intense.
Oh,
So
kids beating up the Grinch. It was funny.
yeah. Well, I mean, the very first time the Grinch showed up is still like priceless, just because like it was like we got the Grinch to show up at the school, and the kids were all really really small, like pre-K, kindergarten, and they were like he like came sneaking in with, and he was brought the gifts, right? So he wasn't stealing, he was bringing gifts. And like at first they were kind of like unsure, but some of them just like, it was like the lights, like the cockroaches when the lights come on, they just like scattered. One kid was like crying, and like the video or whatever that was edited basically is just like, "You're rotten," and the kid's just like pouring tears, holding on to mom's leg or whatever. So like half the kids were just like scared out of their mind and running away, and the other half were like they were like trying to hug on the Grinch. So it was like a little bit of both. It was still so good though, so good. Still one of the best ones. Still one of the best ones.
You never forget your first time with the Grinch.
No, I don't think
Never.
so. But it's that season, man. It's that season to do fun stuff like that. Are you done with lights?
Yes,
Yeah.
except for my house.
You gonna put lights up at your house?
Yeah, the Grinch theme. It's
Oh,
not even done
I thought
yet.
you said it was. I thought you meant like it was inside Grinch
Oh
thing.
no, it's the outside. It's cool. I got like a LED wall with the Grinch going,
Gotcha.
just taking presents from the tree.
That's cute.
Nice.
Nice.
He's been redeemed. He doesn't take presents anymore, man. He's got a heart of gold. His heart actually tripled in size.
I recently found yesterday. Actually, I just found out that there's a Christmas light competition in the neighborhood.
Oh, is there?
Oh,
why
I
because, yeah,
was
you're in your new place now.
So do you get money or something, or just a
It's
prize?
just
Yard
I think
of
it's
the-
like
your
$100
Christmas yard.
in
Oh,
really?
that yard. I mean, I got to show out.
I hear.
and
I mean,
actually do
since it's your
lights.
thing, yeah.
I had to win.
Yeah, that would be bad if like some grandma beat you.
Yeah, you just have to
Exactly.
spend thousands of dollars to make your yard look nice
I
enough to
know.
win $100.
That's the thing. I'm not gonna buy inflatables.
No.
Don't do the inflatables.
I couldn't do it. I was like, yeah, that's actual money I got to pay for. I don't want to pay.
Yeah.
No.
I don't like the inflatables. Though.
I don't love inflatables. I know people do them because they're easy. My parents did one for Halloween, and I'm like, I like old school, like
Yeah.
the light up creatures
Yeah.
or like the cutout painted
Yeah,
things.
I'm
I like
not
that kind of
against like
stuff.
maybe a Santa and a sleigh or something, or
The reindeer with the
a reindeer.
LED
I'm not a
lights
huge fan of the reindeer.
turning head.
There was a friend of mine who had a couple reindeer in his yard, and their head like did this, and this was in my much younger years, when the Lord was still working on me, and I just repositioned them.
Of course
yeah.
you did.
Let's just put it that way.
Most people do that.
Let's just say I repositioned them, and it was very funny. It was very, very funny. So anyway, yeah, don't do that. Don't put those kind of things in your yard because people are going to definitely misuse them, right? So, but yeah, I like a classic, just lights, little subtleties. But like the thing I love the best is when they wrap the trees and they put the white lights around the edges. I don't like color lights. I like just the
You like white
white
lights?
lights. Yeah,
We did red, white, and green this year.
yeah. So I'm not a big fan of like,
Represent Mexico. Thank you.
yeah, there it is.
You're welcome.
There it
We
is.
do. I mean, half
Feliz
part of my family
Navidad.
now.
Feliz Navidad. I got fleas on my dog. So, so you got Christmas lights, you got Grinch, you got Santa. Obviously, you got gift buying.
Ugh.
You got caroling. You do a lot of caroling? No,
People still do that?
I always
no.
wanted to.
Yeah,
I've never wanted to.
in Christmas movies they do.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
make it look cute because they live in a town of like 100 people.
And it's all snowy.
And it's
Yeah.
all snowy and everyone's wearing flannel. If you were
Everyone's
to
wearing the
walk up to
black
some
coats.
neighbor's house and just start randomly singing, all the lights would go down and it would go like dead silent.
Nah, there's neighborhoods around here where people will do that.
Do they?
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I would not like it.
So I mean, it's not like two people though. It's like just we wish you a Merry Christmas. Just two people out in front of your house, just doing that. I'm like, well, maybe we should come do that in Rocky's house one night. Just the
think
two of us show up at his house.
But can y'all
You should
do
do the
this? If y'all
competition.
gonna do just the two of you, show up dressed as the sticky finger bandits.
I don't know what that is.
The wet bandits too. Yeah.
Is it the wet
Home Al-
bandits? I
what
thought it was
was
sticky
the
finger
Home Alone
bandits.
One was the wet bandits. Number
Okay.
two, they became the
Sticky finger
bandits.
bandits.
Home
Where did you?
Alone.
Home Alone is
Because
wet.
he did his hand.
They
the
wasn't
tape.
finger anything. It's wet bandits.
That was the first one. The second one, they did the sticky.
Yeah, because he put his hand in the thing and
Tape,
it was he had tape on his hand. He put it in the fish in like the guy's
Yeah.
money bowl and had all the money. He's like, we could be the sticky.
I've
finger
never heard of
bandits.
that. I don't remember him calling
You knew
themselves the
it.
Sticky Finger
Yeah.
Bandits. Is he called it the Sticky Finger
The
Bandits?
second one on Home Alone 2.
Nobody
Yeah.
watched the second one.
Yeah,
I
Sticky
did.
Bandits.
Second one
I
was
watched it the other night.
not good.
I like the second one.
Yeah, first one was way better, but yeah.
First one is way better, but yeah.
I mean, both of them are just horrible parenting. And that dude is a bad kid.
That's
I
what
mean,
was
I say
thinking.
that kid is very resourceful.
Yeah, he's
He was
very
a
resourceful.
bad kid.
And he makes you get. He makes
But
you laugh.
he helped stop the thieves at the toy store. That
was-
sounds
he
like a
did-
pretty good
he
thing.
saved-
I'm
he
pretty
saved
sure-
He set off the
villages.
alarm.
I'm pretty sure calling the police would have done the
He
same
didn't
thing.
have a phone.
He was staying at a multi-million-dollar
You know how
hotel.
long it would have taken him to get back to that hotel? But by the way, the bandits are going to be gone by the time you get this call.
It's New York City. You're telling me there was no other thing he could do other than to notify the police or anyone else in
I'm
that
just
city that
saying.
this was
He
going
got
on?
Kicked out of the.
no,
hotel.
well,
No,
that's
he
when-
didn't get kicked out.
No,
Of
he
the
got
hotel.
chased out, but that was like towards the end of the movie
No, his
anyway.
dad. I just saw the other day. His dad reported the card stolen, so the hotel manager was like trying
Who's-
to capture him. But they let him
Curry,
go.
Tim
Yeah.
Curry, love that.
Him and Rob Schneider. They tried to catch him. They let
Yeah.
him go. And then that's when he was like, I know they're playing.
Yeah.
I got to get them.
Yeah. So instead of just like, hello, I somehow got onto the wrong plane, police officer, and these guys are about to rob this place. And it's the same guys that tried to rob my house last year. They followed me here, and they're stalking me.
Then you miss out on the fun.
Then you miss out on the Christmas fun.
He got
or attempted homicide.
He got a cheese pizza and a limo that was driven by who was the actor that did the limo? It was
I don't remember.
I can't remember that. Is it John Candy?
No, that was John. Was it John Candy in the first one?
No, John Candy wasn't in the first one.
For what?
Uncle Buck. Well, that's
Uncle
John
Buck,
Candy,
he was
right?
in
John
the first
Candy.
one.
He's the second one.
No, first one.
In the first one, they're Polka Kings.
Polka Kings. Big in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Because they're riding in the U-Haul.
They're riding in the U-Haul. You're right. I'm thinking he was like the limo driver in the second one. Okay, you're right.
So,
Yeah. Good movie.
But so there's all kinds of great things. Christmas movies this time of the season. But I know Lauren mentioned earlier that there is also something that happens, and it usually has to do, well, not usually. There's a lot happening right now because for the most part, for us here in the south side of the country, it's race season. A lot of races going on.
So many races.
Houston Marathon, half marathon's coming up in just a few weeks. We have Houston HYROX coming up in a few weeks. You've got HYROX Vegas coming up in a few months. I say weeks, few months.
Right.
You've got the HYROX National Championships, North American Open Championships coming up in just a few months. You've got Spartan races coming up in just a few months.
By the time you've heard this, DECA World Championships has just happened.
That's right. So there's stuff going on race-wise. We're in the thick of it, right? And so there's all those are different things, right? You got running, you've got obstacle course racing, you've got hybrid fitness, right? You got all this stuff. And so you said you and one of your friends were having a conversation. You know, what was the conversation about?
Yeah, so one of my other run buddies, we were running today, and we started talking about training and all that. And she's going, everyone's getting ready for the big Chevron and Aramco marathon and half marathon. Well, she's actually going to be going into Utah to be doing a Utah marathon. And then we're talking about HYROX. She is going to be sitting out Houston HYROX because she has got to then start focusing on a bike race. She's doing a cycling race in, I think, like May or June. But she is like really put off that training to focus on her Dallas HYROX race and to work on her marathon training. And so we were just talking about like, well, how do you juggle it when you start wanting to kind of like dip your toes into these other modalities of fitness, these other race events. So like, DECA, HYROX, they kind of like go hand in hand. OCR is a little bit of a different transition. If you can want to work more of the obstacles, maybe more the climbing aspect. But if you start we started talking about triathlons because she wants to do a triathlon one year. And I was like, that's a whole nother ball game because you got to really focus on the bike, the cardio. I mean, the running she's got, but the swimming, that's a whole nother thing. And she was like, I don't know when I'm going to find the time because I want to do well and PR my marathon. I'm bummed that I can't do Houston, but I need to focus on my cycling race and really make sure that I'm prepared for that. So, it's not awful and I can give it my absolute best effort. And of course, for her, that's a very competitive effort, but she also doesn't want to sacrifice her strength training. So she's like, how do I even start to like manage this so that I'm not completely burned out and physically and mentally and train safely, but also in a way that I'm progressing. And I think that's something a lot of people we know kind of start, especially when you've been doing one type of fitness for a long time. So if you've been running a long time and you try something else, but you don't want to necessarily give up the thing you love, like how do you start to balance all those things? And I was like, I'm not the person to ask this question to, but yeah, I know where we can bring it.
That's what you said?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not the person to ask this, but I know exactly where we can bring it up.
You didn't have any kind of insights?
I mean, I told her, I was like, well, the strength, I think if you can manage, I just told her if you can somehow manage to keep strength in, because it obviously has helped you a lot. What I told her is, as far as her endurance goes, I said, biking is another endurance sport. And you've got a high aerobic capacity. Like you are a really good runner. I wouldn't be so stressed out. Yes, you want bike time. You want time in the saddle, going through that. It's sitting in the saddle alone. Just the feeling on the bike is very different. So it's like, you definitely need to like train on the saddle. But I said, biking would also be helpful for your running because you're still moving, you're still getting that aerobic capacity. So maybe after the marathon would be a good time for you to transition like less mileage.
Mm-hmm.
And because she's doing Boston, but her goal for Boston is just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have like a PR goal.
Sure.
So I was like, maybe after the marathon in January, that'd be a great time to start kind of winding down on the miles a little bit. Keep like a base so you're good for Boston, but put a little more mileage into the biking because that's still going to help you train for Boston in a way because you're still going to have that aerobic endurance you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was just my 2 cents. I'm usually spread so thin that I'm like, great question. James,
What do you think?
Well, I was thinking, is the bike is good for recovery? I'm sure, especially after the marathon. Would it be easier to go to a bike from straight to, because I know most people, they do a little light run, but pretty much the whole week is like taking it easy. You just ran a whole marathon.
Sure.
Is a bike good to just go and maybe a week after and then start recovering off of that and then still doing mileage, but still doing some bike, but like Lauren said, toning down from the bike, toning down mileage on the running, but
transition to mileage on the bike.
But still do your strength workouts because you need the legs.
I mean, I like to usually tell most of my athletes, I tell them the week after a hard race, it's a recovery week. So run if you want to, don't run if you don't, right? It's a hard reset, basically. Let your mind reset, give you a chance to kind of rehearse how the event went. And I think it gives you enough time to kind of miss it a little bit, to miss the consistency of it.
Right.
Yeah, so that you can get back on it and not feel overwhelmed, right? Like if you just jump right back into it, I think you don't give yourself enough time to appreciate not doing it. Mm-hmm. So a week or two allows that time to happen and you miss the consistency of it. So, but really I think like for say the bike race, right? I think it really comes down to what the distance of the bike race is, right? So, when I try to coach athletes, like I'm telling them like to be more deliberate about their events that they're going to do. Not to say that you can't leave room for fun things and stuff that you want to do, but I think you have to be deliberate about, okay, these are the events I want to do. These are the events that are like my A events, right? My A races that I really want to do well. And then like there's B race, C race, right? And there's like all these other kind of lead up to races or whatever preparation races that might help accentuate your training or break up the monotony of training for your A races. And minimum your A races should at least be, I think, 6 months apart. So to like go into a race season where you're running a marathon and then you turn around, and do another marathon in like 2 months. And I don't know what the bike distance is, but I'm assuming if it's who I think it is, it's probably not a short one.
It's like, if I'm not mistaken, on the race, I think it's like 120.
Yeah. So, that's 120 miles. I mean, that's further than that's further than you ride when you do an Ironman. So that's a pretty good distance. And then I think they also have another event at the end of March that they're doing. It's like a relay race, So if I was coaching this person, I would tell them you can do all that stuff, but the focus, you're not going to PR on all of it, in my opinion, right? So I could be wrong. I have been wrong before, and sometimes I feel like some people, like, they train the way they train just purely to prove me that I'm wrong, right? But the point I'm making is you could be faster and you'd be better if you kind of planned ahead and, so periodization is what it comes down to, right? So you train specifically for a particular event for a certain period of time, right? Well, to get any type of real results, a training period should probably be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. And in 4 weeks, you can get some improvement, but you're not going to get a bunch, right? So you need the adaptation time for your heart and for your muscles and things like that. So, the good thing about like the cycling part of it is like there's no written rule that says to get your aerobic training in, it has to all come from running. Right? You can get a lot of aerobic fitness from cycling. So, I mean, you could train for a marathon and still get cycling in, right? So if you're trying to, let's say you want to get to like 60 miles or equivalent of running, well, if you go out and run 3 miles and it takes you 30 minutes, well, go ride the bike for 35 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Right? At a low intensity.
Yeah.
Right? And, you could probably get more volume in overall because the bike is, like you said, a lot lower intensity, right? So it's non-load bearing, so it's a much easier on the body. So you can get a lot of good fitness training for a marathon or HYROX or whatever else, riding the bike.
No, I completely, and I agree with that. One of the things I did tell her was, because I used to be a really big cycler before I got back into all the running. I did the MS150, I did all the big races. And I told her, again, because she has a pretty good aerobic base already, what's probably going to be really crucial for her at this point is, because a lot of people they take this for granted, is saddle time. Because being on those seats for a very long period of time can be extremely painful. If you're not used to it, it can be very uncomfortable. Being in that specific bike position, if you're not used to it, can be really uncomfortable for the long haul. But even more so, I said, something else that you're probably not going to be as prepared for as you think is the hills. Because, of course, it goes out towards hill country. Mm-hmm. And the only way to really get prepared for those hills is to be on hills. Mm-hmm. And that's from personal experience. Like, you can get on like a simulator, but until you like get on it and you got the wind against you, like, you don't know. So I did tell her, manage your expectation. It's your first time doing this race. You don't have to go out there with this expectation. You're going to have this incredible time. Just go out and have fun and like get a feel for the race. Well, of course.
Sure.
You know who it is. She's like, well, I want to be with the A Corral. I'm like, A Corral is a very competitive group of people. That's like, not saying they're the elites necessarily. Some of them are. But like, you're talking about people who've been doing this over and over and over again. So that's like a really competitive heat of people to try to like stick with for your very first race when you already have a very busy schedule.
Yeah. Why are you not letting them shine? Let them shine.
I want her
You're trying to put their light out. What the heck?
I do. I'm not trying to put her light out. I'm speaking from experience of like, I've done these races. I know how much they can hurt you. And I don't want her injured because I don't want it to affect her other, the rest of her year. Yeah. I know she's going to want to do other things.
I mean, she'll probably be fine. I mean, it's a little bit more challenging to get injured on a bike. I mean, it's not saying you can't, right? But I mean, if she's got a good aerobic base, which she does, and, she does get time on the bike, right? So I would probably just say, ultimately, if she cycled twice a week,
yeah,
then she'd be fine, right? Maybe one long effort that was, a couple hours long or so, 2-3 hours long, depending on, not like, you don't start at that, right? You need to work your way up to it. And then one maybe threshold session, right, where she's actually riding the bike at an elevated heart rate, whether it's on like a stationary bike, right, where you're like doing Zwift or something like that, or if you're doing it out on the streets, then that would probably, as long as she's keeping up the other mileage, like the running stuff, then she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be just fine.
Not speaking about her, what if someone was doing the HYROX in March and then they're still doing that race?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be challenging, right? Just because they're two different. So here's the thing. It's not just those two, but they're also running a marathon when is the marathon?
January.
Mm-hmm. Are they doing Utah and Houston?
No, they're not doing Houston.
Okay, just Utah. And Utah's in January.
Utah is also in January.
Okay,
I think it's like the last week of January.
Okay, so you've got January, Utah, right? So I assume, I could be wrong. We'll forget that. I'm not even going to mention that. But, like, that's a marathon. It's 26.2 miles. And knowing that person, they're probably going to go fast, right? So they're trying to get a PR.
They want a PR.
They're not going in there to just, like, oh, it's beautiful.
No, they want a PR.
They're going to go fast. So that means they're going to put a hard effort in, right? So then if you try to do HYROX, a month later, you could definitely do it. But, you're probably going to be a little fatigued. And HYROX is challenging, right? And depending on if you did a doubles or a singles, then if you turn around a few weeks later and then you go do a relay fast as you can, and then you turn around and then you go do Boston, and then you turn around and then you do when's the bike race?
I believe it's either in late May or early June.
Okay, so that's not that much further away, right, to do that. So that's a lot. You're talking about in less than 6 months, forget the HYROX event. In less than 6 months, you're doing 2 marathons and a 120-mile bike ride. I would not suggest to do that. I think that more, not the biking, but the marathons and that and the other race, the relay race, is more likely to set you up for injury than anything else, right? So you may be just fine. I think it just depends on the individual, their training history, their fitness history, all that other stuff. And, I know a lot of these people who are doing these kinds of things, right? And they're competitive. That's why they're doing them, right? And I don't know anybody that's competitive that has a competitive nature in them that ever goes and does any race just for fun, right? So to go to Boston and say, yeah, I'm just doing this for fun, for the experience, it's not going to happen. Like, I would be willing to put, I could be wrong. Believe me, I could be wrong. I know that. But you're going to get there. They're going to be all hyped up on Boston Energy and everybody else that's there. And then they're like, I can PR this race. And I only know that because I have coached a lot of people that have ran Boston who qualified and ran it for the first time. And I went in and like, hey, first time, just enjoy it. It's not like running Houston. It's not like running, the tunnel marathon. It's not like a negative elevation where you start point to point and you go downhill the whole way. It's meant to like psych you out and then beat you down toward the end of the race. So, experience it, whatever time you get on this course is a PR for this course because not all courses are the same. So you don't compare every single course time, right? So, but knowing that person, I highly doubt that's going to happen. They're going to be like, I can PR this. So I think it just all depends on the situation and what your focus is, right? So, but you definitely need to be strength training, right? So, if you're trying to keep your strength training regimen and your focus is preparing for, this bike race, and you are going to do these other events for fun and you're not going to go all out, I mean, as long as you're keeping in 1 or 2 days of strength training a week, I think you're going to be fine. Yeah. You're going to have more than enough strength. You're going to keep your injuries at bay, hopefully. So I would focus more on easy efforts once or twice a week. And when I say easy efforts, I'm keeping your heart rate down, making sure it's not too tough. Once or twice a week doing strength training. And if you have the bandwidth, really focusing on recovery, probably an additional day or replace that other strength day with like some sort of mobility, recovery, strength style work, right? Some kind of accessory work. And really focusing on that like foam rolling, stretching, the stuff that you need to do to recover when you're doing those, all that mileage and all that biking and riding and running and everything, right? So, but I honestly don't think it's as hard as people think it is, unless you're trying to bike,
Divide.
Yeah, unless you're trying to bike like 100 miles, 150 miles a week, and you're trying to run 70 miles a week, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of training hours. So I think it has more to do with like, understanding what the ultimate goal is. And you don't need to go out and bike 140 miles to ride 140 miles. Yeah. Right. So it's ultimate volume, time on legs, time in the saddle, right? Making sure you get the right equipment so that you're not too saddle sore. You develop the saddle calluses, right? And your butt can kind of get used to sitting on that thing. And even more so, like, the pressure you put on your shoulders if you're using using the arrow position. Arrow bars. And really focusing on, I think, just like everything else, form and function. Yep. Right.
So what if, so we've covered like cycling, running, kind of interchangeable, keep the strength training at always prioritize recovery day. Would you say the same thought process can be applied to if somebody wanted to get into like, say, triathlon training?
Yep.
And like with the swimming?
Yeah. I think that's the cool thing about like doing hybrid training type situation is that you're basically always working on a foundation of fitness, aerobic capacity, and then you're doing specific things, periodization for whatever event you're doing, right? So like when we're talking strength training, you don't need to be pushing sleds and like lunging with 70-pound sandbells. If you're over the next 6 months, you're going to be doing marathons and 120-mile bike races. It's just not necessary. Yeah. The strength training you need to be doing is to accentuate that so that you don't get injured and help to build additional strength, right? So going and doing HIIT workouts and all, unless you just like doing it and you have the time for it, it doesn't really build toward what you're trying to do. Okay. So you'd be better off switching those out for like maybe some bike threshold sessions, which you should be able to build strength on. Yeah. And so if you're going to train for a triathlon, well, it's going to be the same thing, right? So I think that also has to do with the distance on the triathlon, right? So it's like trying to tell somebody how to strength train for a 5K as opposed to a half marathon or a marathon. Those are completely different events, right? They take different amounts of time to commit to, and a 5K is a fast, hard race. whereas a marathon is an extended, slower race, right? So even if you're fast, it's still slower than you're running your 5K.
Yeah.
Right? Your heart rate level is going to look different, all that stuff. So those are different types of strength and endurance. So depending on what the distance, I mean, they have sprint tries, they have an Olympic try, they have a half Ironman, they've got Ironman, and each one of those is different in how you would train and prepare yourself for them. So I think that's what it comes down to begin with is like, can you train for a triathlon? Yes, but I mean, based on the distance of it would depend on like how tough is it going to be to try to like add in like different types of strength workouts or swims and runs. But here's usually, I think the overview is usually the swim is the shortest part. Then you got the bike, which is usually the longest part. And you've got the run, which is usually the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
So the things you need to spend the majority of your time on are the bike and the run, because that's where you're going to make up the most of your time. For the swim, it really just comes down to you need to just really work on the form of it all.
Yeah.
Learn how to breathe, learn how, do drills, right? But you don't need to be spending, hours in the pool unless you just really like swimming and you want to, that's good aerobic fitness for sure. But you probably would be better off spending that time on the bike or on the run.
Yeah. Now, sorry, I just had like a blip. My brain just like turned off for a split second. You mentioned like prioritizing your ABC. We've talked about that several times over the course of the podcast is know which one's your A, your B, your C. So you kind of know like how to prioritize what you're training. Have you ever given the advice to an athlete that if they want to, let's say, do it all, that you say maybe this year we focus on 1 or 2?
Well,
and not, think you have to do every event.
I think it depends. What I would always encourage someone to do is just make a decision on what kind of racer are you going to be, right? Are you going out to do events because you enjoy doing events? They're fun. Mm-hmm. You want the experience of it all. You like to travel. It's a great excuse to travel. And you're just doing it for the whatever. And if you happen to do, well, then great. Then that's fine, right? That's a different kind of training than even to be fully prepared. Then I'm trying to PR every time I race. Every time I hit the start line, I'm trying to PR. So you have to come to the realization and set the expectations for yourself where if like you're racing long distances, and I would say anything that's a half marathon or longer would be considered a hard effort. And so if it's a hard effort, and I'm talking about for the average person, right? Then I would say you don't need to be doing those. A half marathon, probably no more than every 2 or 3 months, maybe. And a marathon, no more than every 6 months. I personally think that's too much. I think 1 a year is more than enough. 2 a year is max. My personal opinion, right? It's probably not the most popular, and that's fine. I'm not telling you can't race more than that. I'm just saying you don't expect to get a PR and don't expect to not to get injured after a certain amount of time because it's probably going to happen. Especially because you're probably not just doing those. You're probably doing 10Ks and 5Ks and everything else in between, right? Fun runs here and there, right? So, I like I said, it just depends on I feel like it depends on what kind of racer you want to be. So, if you want to do everything, do it all. Just understand you're probably going to get hurt and you're not going to be able to PR on every event, right? Because here's the question I would have. How do you recover, get new fitness, and then go out and race again, when you're talking about, let's say, a marathon, right? Let's say you do another marathon in 2 months. How do you recover from that marathon, train, and get more fitness so that you can go back and PR in 2 months? It's a question, yeah.
Oh, I wasn't sure if it was just like question of the world.
If you race it, you should be better just because you have the experience.
Yeah, you would think just like the experience alone would give you a little knowledge and maybe like how to manage yourself.
Yeah.
Better for your next race, but like you said, you would definitely take like at least a week.
But like, let's say
at least a week off.
And I'm just using this because we're using this scenario to an extent. But I bet the race in Utah is probably point to point, and it's probably downhill. I bet you that's partly why they're I would think that's why they're doing it. I can't imagine that because the only other thing in Utah would be like an up and down, and you're doing elevation, and that would be that would be bad. Oh my God.
I think it is a point to point.
Yeah. So I would
I
think
it
it's
is.
probably a point to point negative elevation so that it's going to be a fast race, right?
Yeah.
So you can really get some, which is very helpful for going fast. But if you're going to do that race, okay, and you run fast, and then you're going to need at least a good week or two to recover from that, especially if you're not used to running downhill, right? You're probably going to be pretty sore. You got to recover. So then let's just say you take 1 week. Well, now instead of 8 weeks, now you got 7 weeks to start building for your next marathon, right? So let's say you start basically right where you left off, right? Or somewhere around that. Usually you do a reverse taper. So you would do we usually do a 3-week taper for a marathon. So it's like you do peak week, 80% of peak week, 60% of peak week, and then race week is like 30%. And this is of your volume. So you would reverse that. So you do like a recovery week, which is usually around 30%, right? Run if you want to, run if you don't. Then 60%, then 80%, and then you figure out where you're going to be.
Yeah.
So if you started right back at where you were, let's say you got up to like 55 miles, right, of running, and now you're going to train for another marathon. So now you've got, if we did 3 weeks of a reverse taper and we had 8 weeks, that means we have 5 weeks left. Well, 3 weeks of that is a taper.
Yeah.
So that means we have 2 weeks of training, right? So let's say we run 55 and then we hit 60, right? And then we start tapering down. So you're not going to get a ton of fitness. Basically, what you're doing is just maintaining the fitness you already have. Maybe you're trying to fine-tune your pacing or something like that. And then now you're going to go out and race another marathon, right? So if you're doing Utah, which is a downhill one, and then you're going to turn around and do Boston, which starts downhill, but then around mile 10 or 11, it starts doing this jazz. And then around mile 17 or so, it starts doing this bull. Heartbreak Hill. Before it goes down at the end, then that's a whole different race. Do not expect to run that race. Even if you had more fitness, do not expect to run that race faster than you just tried to run Utah, right? Yeah. So that you're going to be tired. And then if you try to turn around in a month and then go out and blaze a bike ride, especially if it's your first one, I feel like that's a lot of racing.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to manage your expectations. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying manage the expectations. Don't expect to go out and crush everybody and everybody's will. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think you have to be cautious and make sure you don't injure yourself.
When you're training people who are like cardio junkies or race junkies, I guess more specifically, and they're looking for ways to make it all happen, is the first thing you counter with them, like they're willing to give up the strength work? Like, well, I just need to keep doing more miles. I'll just give up the strength work instead. Is that like usually the first thing that, like, not you obviously, but like your clients are willing to sacrifice?
I don't know I don't think it's like they give it up. They say like, I'm willing to give it up. I think what happens is they start trying to prioritize. So they're like, their intention is, I want to do strength work, I want to ride, I want to run. And then they start cutting things out throughout the week based off of their time. Yeah. Right. So what they'll usually do is say, okay, I have to get my long run in. So they get their long run in. I have to get my speed work in. So they get their speed work in. Well, strength isn't as important, so I'm not going to do that. Well, this little 3-mile recovery run isn't that important, so I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Right. So they start picking and choosing, and usually the things that they leave out or the things that they make sure they get done are the hard things. And the things they make sure they don't do are the easy and recovery things. So the things basically that keep you from getting injured and help you improve are the things they don't do. And the things they think that are most important are the least important are the things they do. That's what I usually see.
It's funny when we have these conversations and I ask these questions, when he starts talking, I'm like, oh, I recognize myself as the person in question. So
that wasn't the intention.
I know it wasn't intention. That's
gotcha.
A conviction on myself.
Yeah. So, I've done it. I've definitely done it. I'll be honest. Over the summer, right? Just my schedule's been so crazy and like everything that's been going on and trying to do everything. I wasn't able to keep like my aerobic volume up, but then I was still trying to do like my speed work. I was still trying to do my strength efforts, and so like my weekly volume was lower than it's been in probably 6 years. Right. And so I knew that like my fitness wasn't where I wanted it to be. And so I went and raced, and the result was exactly what I expected, right? I figured that like my fitness wasn't where it needed to be, and the race showed that, right? And then I was like, okay, I know for a fact I've got to get my aerobic capacity up. That means I don't have as much time because nothing's changed. I still have a crazy schedule and a lot to going on and a lot of responsibilities. So that means I'm going to have to back something off. So you know what I did? I cut out one of my fast-paced efforts and just made it a slower effort. And it's 6 weeks later, I go and race, and I have a good race, great race. I go out and crush it, right? So no issues whatsoever. And I could have gone faster. I mean, I held myself back because I wasn't sure of myself and my partner, and I definitely could have gone faster. There was no doubt there. Once I was done with the race, actually, when I got to, this is for HYROX Dallas, when we got through with the lunges, I was like, crap. I was like, we could have gone way faster because of how fast we went through the lunges, how easy the lunges were. And same thing with the burpees. I was like, crap. So, like, I was like, we left a lot out there on the course. So, and the course was longer and still was like, right, we still beat the time that I'd like given for us to run. And we still got like a podium spot. We still got second place. So, like, that was pretty good for the first race racing with a new partner coming off of a race 6 weeks earlier where I basically crashed and burned, right? So you can get fitness in like 6 weeks. You can definitely improve, but it's what you focus on to help you improve.
Got you.
If it was like 2 weeks between a race, it probably wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah.
Right? So your body takes about 4 to 6 weeks to adapt to any type of new stimulus. So that means it takes at least 4 to 6 weeks to get new fitness. Right? So, and the cool thing is if you're already fit, right, or you have a good foundation of fitness, like, then when you get back into it, right, and you work on focus on the foundational stuff, usually you see like a big rebound, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So I think they're all important, right? But I think the key is keep the main thing.
The main thing,
right? And if you're ever in question of what to do, focus on the foundation.
Okay. That's good advice. Solid advice.
Right.
I will say that when I talk to her and she's talking about cycling, I'm like, oh, I miss my cycling days.
Go cycle.
I want to. Well, I told her because we were trying to like, oh, well, maybe like, I was like, I can cycle with you. I got some new cycling shoes. I have not broken them in yet. They've just been sitting in the box staring at me. And I was like, I just got to figure out what I would be willing to change or like add in. Where could I add it in or what could I like exchange it out with? And then somebody else had asked me like, well, what are you going to do when HYROX, because that's kind of like the main focus in my race season. What are you going to do when that's not life anymore? And I was like, I'll probably find something else to obsess over. Maybe I'll go back to obsessing over cycling. Maybe I'll have the running capacity to dare to do an ultra. I'm sure I'll find something to obsess over.
Yeah, but there's no reason, right, to like, the word obsess, I think is kind of excessive. Because it's just, you enjoy doing it, right? So there's nothing to say you can't go do other things while you're doing it. And I think that's the beauty of focusing on your athleticism is like, as you experience new things, if you want to go try something new, it doesn't mean you have to have one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't do HYROX anymore. Doesn't mean you can't do OCR anymore. Just because you hadn't done an OCR race in a year doesn't mean you're done doing OCR races.
No, I'm definitely going back to OCR.
For me, it has more to do with the schedule than it has anything else, right? It just has to do with the way those clowns align the races. So like that's definitely not the case. So I think it just has to do with, whatever you're going to do, plan it ahead. And usually you can get more things in if you're a little more deliberate about it in the beginning, right? And they can kind of like accentuate one another and one thing lead to the next, and really help you to like succeed, right? Help you excel, right? Help you thrive and enjoy it a lot more, right? What I find people do is they overextend themselves, they commit to too much, and then they can't keep up with the necessary training and stuff like that. And then they go and do whatever they're going to do. And then each time they do it, they get more and more like hard on themselves because they didn't like live up to their original expectation. Right. So like you have this expectation in the beginning of what it's going to be like, but then you didn't necessarily do the work necessary to meet that expectation.
Yeah.
And then you're like, nah, I suck, right? Well, then now you're like, okay, you're intense. There's never a better training session, in my experience, than the first training session after an event that you failed on. Because that's the one training session that you're super motivated and you're like, I'm going to crush life and I'm crushing workouts. This is it. Let's go. But then that's very fleeting, like after a week or so, right? Plus, you're probably still tired, so you probably don't do great in the workout, and then you crash and burn. You're like, okay, maybe not. So I think it's just good to, be a little more deliberate, right? And make a plan. Make a plan. Make a plan. Repeat after me. Make a plan. And then even more importantly,
execute.
Stick to the freaking plan, right? And it's okay to like have a little ups and downs, right? But don't, this right here, this is like the worst thing you can do for your fitness. Because this right here, this like up and down the hill slide thing, I'm doing 20 miles this week. I'm doing 4 miles this week. I'm doing 17 this week. I'm doing 30 this. I'm doing like 2 miles this week. I'm doing 35 this week. That is a roller coaster of like nowhere to fitness, right? You're not going to improve. You're not going to get any faster. You're not going to get any better, right? So consistency is the most important thing, whatever you're doing. So I think honestly, what she's got set up, your friend, honestly, I don't see the challenge of like getting the riding and the running in, because those are so, and she's training for endurance events. So those are so married together. It probably will benefit her if she really focuses on the cycling between Utah and Boston.
Okay.
Right. And if she really focuses on that, keeps her mileage around 30, 40 miles a week, and then adds in the cycling, the couple 2 or 3 times a day or week of cycling, maybe have a 2-a-day where she runs a little bit. And maybe she has her speed work where she does like a threshold session on the bike for like 20, 30 minutes. And then she jumps off the bike and does like a 15, 20-minute threshold session running. Right. So then it's a hard session. It's lactate threshold session. It's building strength. It's building comfort, being uncomfortable. And then on top of that, she's getting volume in, right, at the same time. And then it's kind of mirroring what it might feel like to have to like do something like a triathlon, right, where you're running off the bike. And then, if she wants to fit in some little, a race here and there, I think that'll be fine. You just got to make sure you're tapering and you're recovering, or you're using it as maybe a training run and you lower your volume that week and you just make sure you recover well the next week. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with what she's talking about doing. I think it's probably smart that she's not doing HYROX in Houston, right? Because that would just be one extra thing. And I put the caveat is the if she goes into Boston with the expectation of running Boston for fun.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know the likelihood of that, honestly. So,
all right, friend, if you're listening,
if she goes into it and she sticks to that concept and that idea, I think she's gonna be just fine. She'll do great.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have any doubt that she's gonna do like great in her marathon and great in her bike ride.
Yeah. So, but I mean, a lot of people. I mean, I coach another person or whatever, and they did Berlin Marathon. They did the New York Marathon, and they did HYROX. Basically, all within less than 8 weeks.
I was going to say, yeah, those were all pretty close together.
Like basically, I think 8 to 10 weeks, something like that, right? That is a lot to do, right? Now, in their defense, though, they have a lot of high volume. They've been running 70-plus miles a week for an extended period of time, right? So it's not like we climbed to 70 and it was the first time they ever did it, right? They're averaging like 50 miles a week for over a year.
Stayed ready to get ready.
Exactly, right? So for someone like that, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Right? I still probably would not suggest following Berlin up with New York because they're so close together, right? But also understanding the concept of like what you're capable of doing. And they actually went pretty conservative for New York.
I was going to ask you, how did they manage their expectations?
Like they went much more conservative than I thought they were going to go. But I thought it was a super successful race because they were super consistent. I mean, like it was like 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7 minutes, 7:01, 7 minutes, 7 minutes. Like the pace was like on point for New York. And that's really hard to do because of all the bridges and all the elevation you have to tackle for New York. Like to be that consistent, like I was highly impressed with what they put together. So I mean, I thought that was really, really, really good. So, and then turn around, 2 weeks later and
Do HYROX?
crush HYROX. I mean,
2 weeks.
yeah, I think that's what it
Almost,
was, if
something
I
like
remember
that.
correctly. 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Wasn't
something
that
like
far. Just basically enough time
To recover.
yeah. We're not working on fitness. We're just working on efficiency and form.
I need some food.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and they could have gone faster probably for HYROX, but it was the first one, right? So,
But now they're like super excited about HYROX again.
yeah, I think so.
They're very like hooked in. So.
Yeah. So I think he's doing Houston by himself. So that'll be cool. So, and we might do Atlanta.
I'm thinking of Atlanta.
We might do the pro doubles in Atlanta. We'll
Ooh,
see.
they should. That weight is awesome for y'all.
So, but yeah, I mean, I think you can definitely do it, but I think the key is don't overextend yourself and create a plan. And if you do that, you'll be all right.
There you go. Plan accordingly, people.
Yep. So if you're confused on like how to make that happen, I think the first thing you do is write it on a piece of paper, right? And work backwards. Start at your event. Give yourself whatever the event is. If it's like a marathon, give yourself like a 2 or 3 week taper. And then have whatever you think you need to do mileage-wise peak week.
Okay.
Right? So 50 miles, 60 miles, whatever you're going to do. And then 70 miles, 80, 100, whatever. And then using the 10% rule, work your way backwards.
Go backwards.
Right? So if you're at 70, that means you're at 63, right? Then you're at like 66. Then you're at like, 60, right? Then you're at like 55. Then you're at 50. Then you're like, so that allows you to count backwards to see how many weeks do you actually need to get where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that's usually a great way to do it based on how many days you're going to be running or cycling, adding that in. And then you can start trying to like, okay, when can I do strength training? How long do my strength sessions need to be? Then you can add in, okay, when am I going to do my recovery work? And if you're deliberate about it, I feel like you're going to do much better than rather than say, okay, I'm going to start training for this whatever event. And then I'm going to just try to throw in some weight training sessions. I'm going to try to throw this in. I'm going to try to go push the sled and have a HIIT workout. Doing that, I feel like, will not set you up for success, and you're going to start picking and choosing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's too easy at that point to like start putting in too many hard efforts because you're not really taking account to what each one's going to do.
Right.
So before you know it, you could like look back at the week and be exhausted and be like, oh, well, I accidentally did like 5 really hard sessions back to back because I didn't think about it.
Right.
Been there, done that.
Yep. So yeah, is that pretty much cover it all, I guess, then, of what y'all talked about, right?
I think that should be it.
Yep.
I think it should be it. So hopefully she's going to tune into this episode.
She's not going to like this episode. She's going to like.
She's not going to like that she's like, I'm a peacock. I want to fly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
She's
exactly
gonna let me
what she's like. You got to let me fly. Yeah, I'm going to fly. But peacocks don't really fly. They just jump and flap their wings. So we don't want to do that.
They're not the best flyers.
We want you to soar like an eagle.
Yeah.
Soar like an eagle.
I know she has the ability to do very, very well.
Yeah, and I also know her.
I just don't want her to get hurt.
She'll do things just to spite me.
That is also true.
Just to show me that she can do it and she can beat me. In fact, I'm pretty sure I saw a video y'all did, and like her response of why she likes doing stuff was to beat me.
Beating Coach James.
So, that lets you know all you need to know. That lets you know. But I mean, it's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege that she thinks highly enough of me that her success.
You're like
Her success is based off of how bad she makes me look. And I think that's a lot of people I know.
Yes.
That's an honor. That's an honor, right? Rocky went into retirement after he beat me in an OCR race once.
There you go.
Right? Once.
Mission accomplished.
One time. 1 out of 10, right? You do that, you become the master.
That's how it's done.
That's exactly right. So.
All right. Well, train safe, people. Make a plan. Don't overstretch yourself.
Don't overextend yourself. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay. Well, anything else?
I don't know. You're in charge.
I'm
right?
definitely not, but thank you.
Okay. So remember to like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, on YouTube. We have a lot of really great videos that we did from TRE, giving you previews on a lot of the shoes. But we also have some shoe reviews coming up. Plus, keep your eyes out for that Grinch video, music video coming out very, very shortly because it's got to be out before Christmas, and we want to drop it and we want you to enjoy it for Christmas. Also, to all of our Patrons out there, our site is almost ready to go. So what you're going to get is, I've been teasing this now, but I'm going to go ahead and break it down for you. If you are a Patreon member, and that's the $5 and above, then what we're going to do is we got a patch that we're going to send you guys, get you guys, and then we're also going to give you credits, and those credits can be used on our merch site, or you can basically just purchase whatever you want up to that credit dollar value. So that is our gift to all of our Patreons, saying thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for being a part. Everybody else, you'll be able to purchase those items as well. If you would like to, you get no credits because you don't support us the way we want you to support us. Obviously, you're listening and you're watching, so that's support. But we also need you to become a Patreon, right? To help us grow this so we can do more things like merch and more things like going to TRE and all this other cool stuff. So thank you so much for anything you do. Like, share, rate, do all that cool stuff. You can go to Patreon/runningwithjames to become a Patreon member. And you also get extra stuff as well, right? So we just recorded a Patreon episode right before we did this one. So there's other stuff you guys can get in on other than just this wonderful content with the three of us. So if you don't do anything this Christmas season, remember that no matter what, always work toward...
You can change your mind.
You can change your life.
There you go. Look at that.